get a visit from our good friend KT McFarland. And we met her when she was first one of the crew at Fox News. And they were so proud of her when she became Deputy National Security Advisor under Mike Flynn. And then she's like, what? What happened to my life? As we joke, she's a woman with the plans for the Manhattan Project in one hand and a fine Manhattan in the other. KT McFarland. Hey, KT. Welcome to the Mike Gallagher Show.
It's just terrific to be with you, Sam. I'm delighted that you're now going national. It's perfect for you.
Well, let's not go crazy. One small step for man. Yeah, no, it's an honor to fill in today. So one thing about the newsrooms, they were so heck-bent on not showing you what was going on in front of the Senate Judiciary last week when, like, our great Senator Ted Cruz was grilling a man named Rod Rosenstein. And that was part of the group of folks who tried to ruin your life. KT McFarland, once again, give a quick recap of what happened to your life when you were Deputy National Security Advisor under our great President, Donald Trump.
I was Deputy National Security Advisor, and 3 weeks later, my boss, Mike Flynn, was fired. I was ultimately fired because I worked for Mike Flynn. And that was not the worst of it. The worst of it was when the Mueller investigation came coming after me. They did the same thing to me that they did to General Flynn. They knew that there was no wrongdoing. They knew that. We now realize we knew that right from the very beginning. But they wanted the Russia hoax to continue. And with me, they showed up at my door. The FBI showed up at my door in Long Island. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, it's the FBI. We want to ask you a few questions. And they laid perjury traps. They suggested I didn't need a lawyer. They asked me questions. They seized all of my records over the next several months that I met with them. And then basically it's like they had the answer key, and they would quiz me. And if I got something wrong, they would jump up and say, aha, you should have remembered that. And I would say, well, I forgot. I mean, I didn't give me my records, and I can have a better recall. Oh, no. That's not how we do things. And what they were trying to do to me was what they were trying to do and did successfully to General Flynn, which was to get him caught in a perjury trap where they can claim your faulty memory is in fact a lie and charge you with a crime. They never charged me with a crime, and mostly it was because at the end of the day I said, well, I'm not going to plead guilty to crimes I didn't commit. So if you want to charge me, go ahead and charge me. And then they went away. But the whole thing is, Sam, they were never after me, really. I was collateral damage. They were never really even after Mike Flynn. They were after Donald Trump. These were the people, the permanent bureaucracy, the Washington insiders, who could not fathom that Donald Trump had been elected president. And so they set out to make it impossible for him to govern. Now, they didn't succeed, but they sure hurt him.
KT McFarland, by the way, wrote the book Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We, the People. Before I get your take on Rosenstein sweating up there, tell everybody about that when they put you in a cinder block room and shut the door and interrogated you there. It is like just a Jennifer Garner movie scene waiting to happen.
Well, the FBI picked me up in Washington. I live in New York, so I had to go to Washington for this wonderful privilege. And they drive me in a dark car, dark windows, drive me into a nondescript office building in downtown Washington, and go into the back entrance, the service entrance, and then walk along a cinder block hallway, check all of our electronics, cell phone, watch, everything, and then go into a cinder block room with one of those folding tables, a metal table and metal folding chairs, sort of like you see in prisons. And then 5 FBI people and Mueller investigators, Barracuda lawyers, sat on one side of the table with 5-inch thick notebooks where they had every minute of every day and every text message, every email, every phone call, everything I did. And I sat on the other side of the table. I couldn't bring in notes. So I'm sitting there with my hands in my lap, and I had my 2 lawyers here with me, and thank goodness I had terrific lawyers. But that's how they conduct business. And their whole point was to try to get people, trick them up, and then they could claim, see, this is evidence, not of crimes being committed, not that there was collusion with the Russians or any of that, but their whole point was to get you on, they didn't remember, therefore it must be a crime.
KT McFarland.
And we now see with all the documents, Sam, we see with all the documents that are coming out, it was a fraud from the beginning. But the real thing that makes me the maddest is not only, they destroyed my career, they've ruined Michael Flynn's life, But they really hurt the country for 3 years. They had us believing and running around in each other's throats over this Russia hoax stuff. And they knew from the get-go there was nothing to it.
KT McFarland.
That's what makes me the maddest.
Gosh, no, it does. By the way, when you were sitting there with 5 agent lawyers facing you, and you were allowed, did you drop the line 5? I think you're going to need 7 or 8 guys. Go get some more.
Well, what it did remind me, and I wrote about this in my book, that all I could think of is I'm sitting there, and, you're not allowed to go for lunch. You're not allowed. You have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. All I could think of was I remember being in a room like this. It was on the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea in Panmunjom. But the only difference is in North Korea there were windows, and in this room there were no windows.
KT McFarland, former Deputy National Security Advisor under Mike Flynn, wrote the book Revolution, Trump, Washington, We the People. It's on the Mike Gallagher Show. All right, so now you're watching Rod Rosenstein, last week grilled by Ted Cruz, grilled by Lindsey Graham, and he goes, well, if I had to do it over again, wouldn't have signed it, this, that, and the other. How does that make you feel? Or do people need to be thrown in the Gray Bar Hotel over this?
He was slithering away. So the 3 things that he's responsible for, okay, he created the Office of Special Counsel. So his excuse, I got bad intelligence. I never would have done it if I'd had good intelligence. Then the second thing is the FISA warrants, which are the wiretap warrants to spy on the Trump campaign. And he said, well, I just put my name on the form. That was McCabe. That was the FBI that did that. Wasn't me. I didn't have time to read it. I was too busy doing other things. And then when they asked him about the unmasking memos or the scope memo, what was the scope of the Mueller investigation? He said, I just signed what was put in front of me. I'm watching this for hours, Sam, and I'm thinking, was this guy ever at the Department of Justice? Sounds like he just casually walked by one day, but has no idea what they were doing inside.
God.
So he was slithering away, blaming everybody. And then, of course, the inevitable happened, which was he hardly got out of the congressional hearing room when other people that he had blamed started blaming him. So I think the walls are coming in on these guys. They're all going to start fighting with each other and blaming each other because it's pretty clear that there's a lot of documentary evidence that they did very bad things knowingly.
KT McFarland, we all know in the media, when the lie is printed on the front page, the correction is somewhere in the back near apartments for rent. Will there ever be a day where, these jokers are locked up and Mike Flynn gets his reputation back?
I don't know. I'm putting a lot of stock in the Attorney General, who I think is a man of extraordinary courage and integrity, John Durham, who's investigating the investigators. But the news cycle itself, as you point out, the media has moved on. If you weren't listening to the Mike Gallagher Show or Sam Malone or watching Fox News, you would never even think that there was anything going on. And so I hope at the end of the day people are held accountable. But sadly, the media, who was in on this from the get-go, it wasn't just the deep state and the intelligence officials like Comey and Brennan and McCabe. It was not just them. It was also the media were complicit in it. They have stolen 3 years of the lives of the American people when we should have been paying attention to China, when we should have been paying attention to rebuilding our infrastructure. What were we doing? We were chasing a hoax that didn't exist.
Hey, Susan Rice emailed, we did everything by the book, KT. I don't know what you're talking about, wink, wink.
Yeah, but guess what? She blames Comey, and guess what Comey's now doing? He's saying, oh, no, I did everything by the book. I just did what President Obama told me. I was just following orders. So I'm just very curious to see what excuses they're all going to come up with in the next few weeks.
By the way, and finally with KT
doozy. The dog ate my homework. Just remember, the dog ate my homework. When they get to that point, they really are running out of good ideas.
Worked for me in 4th grade. And finally, the Department of Justice and such not going to go after, let's say, Barack Hussein Obama and his action on this. What's your 2 cents finally?
Sam, I think that unless you've got a former president who's standing over a dead body with a gun in his hand and 500 eyewitnesses, I do not believe, I'm going to break with a lot of my conservative friends, I do not believe you go back, one political party should go after another political party's leader. I just think it smacks too much of a banana republic. Now, did they do it to us? You bet they did. But I don't think that's a reason to go back and do it to them, because in the end of the day, it hurts the country.
Former Deputy National Security Advisor, friend of our show, KT McFarland. Manhattan of the Manhattan Project plans in one hand, Manhattan in the other. The book is Revolution, Trump, Washington, We the People. I know you're busy. I know you got grandchildren time. Thanks for breaking away and joining us on the Mike Gallagher Show, KT. You're the best. You're the best.